If you want to know what everyday mistakes and habits you should get rid of as they slowly and gradually destroy your brain, then this video is for you. A mistake that contributes to a decrease in brain performance is that we do not take on activities that stimulate thinking. Instead, we increasingly focus on activities that weaken brain performance. I'm talking about mindlessly watching television or spending many hours a day browsing social media. It is said that an unused brain atrophies, and there is some truth to that. Fortunately, there is a range of activities that can improve mental agility and prevent or delay the onset of dementia. These activities include reading books, playing instruments, learning foreign languages, playing cards or board games, memorizing song lyrics, or learning poems, as well as solving crosswords, sudokus, and so on. Even something as simple as doing jigsaw puzzles can be a brain workout. Additionally, our brains do not like routine, so it is worth changing habits. For example, from time to time, you can change the route you take from work or the store back home, read a book in the park instead of doing it at home, or try writing a few sentences with your other hand. Such new stimuli are good training for the brain. Being exposed to loud environments frequently can be harmful to the brain. Observational studies in Denmark have shown that people exposed to road and railway noise have a higher risk of developing vascular dementia and Alzheimer's disease. Scientists suggest that this may be due to the noise causing sleep disturbances as well as increasing the release of stress hormones, which can contribute to circulatory disorders, changes in the immune system, and the development of inflammatory states, which can further lead to problems with dementia. Also, prolonged exposure to noise can cause hearing loss. Researchers have shown that people between the ages of 45 and 64 who have hearing problems have a 40% higher risk of developing dementia. Considering this data, I can say that taking care of your hearing, not only by avoiding loud environments, is a good way to minimize the risk of dementia. I will also record a separate video about hearing in the future. Withdrawing from social life can be a harmful habit for the brain. Experts backed up by scientific research believe that people who are not socially active are more prone to developing dementia. Conversely, greater involvement in relationships and social activities is associated with a lower risk of cognitive decline. I have reached the results of meta-analysis on this topic, which showed that low social participation and fewer social contacts are associated with an even higher risk of dementia, up to 57%. Additionally, the authors of this study indicated that loneliness also increases the risk of this problem by 58%. Therefore, I encourage you to spend time with people by participating in cultural events, attending various workshops, joining associations, enrolling in a university of the third age, traveling together, or even just visiting your closest friends. This used to be so common a few years ago, but now it seems to be a less frequent occurrence. One of the everyday problems we face is the lack of some kind of escape. We live in a world of rush, tension, and stress, and many of us don't take any action to relieve the accumulating mental pressure. Simply put, we lack the time and often the willingness and motivation to take care of our mental health and find ways to reduce stress. And according to scientists, stress is destructive to our brains. In a comprehensive study from 2021, an international team of researchers proved that experiencing stress is linked to an increased risk of cognitive disorders by 19%. People who live in constant stress have a higher risk of developing dementia by 44%. In the habits that can have a negative effect on our brain health, I must include the overuse of containers and packages containing aluminium. I'm referring here mainly to aluminium trays, aluminium foil, aluminium pans, or products sold in aluminium cans. This especially applies to acidic products, mainly processed vegetables and fruits, as well as salty products such as canned fish. This is because aluminium more readily penetrates from packaging into food under such conditions. Of course, I don't want to overspeak here by saying that occasionally using various aluminium materials is a threat to our health, especially since technology has advanced and many aluminium products have an additional coating that protects against the element leaching into food. Nevertheless, nothing is eternal, and the same goes for these coatings. As I said before, acidic or salty environments as well as higher temperatures increase the risk of aluminum compounds leaching into food. I believe that if we occasionally use aluminum packaging, there is nothing to worry about. However, regularly using this type of material can be detrimental. Let us remember that aluminum is also an ingredient in some food additives. I'm talking about aluminum sulfate, which is numbered from E520 to E523, or aluminum silicate, which is numbered from E504 to E506. You should know that aluminum has neurotoxic effects. Scientists suspect that too much exposure to aluminum is one of the significant risk factors for developing Alzheimer's disease. This is confirmed by a meta-analysis from 2016. Specifically, experts gathered the results of several scientific studies from which they unambiguously concluded that people who are chronically exposed to aluminum are 71% more likely to develop Alzheimer's disease. I would like to emphasize that children are particularly sensitive to aluminum as the toxicity of this component depends on its amount relative to our body mass. The less we weigh, the more harmful the same dose of aluminum becomes. I would like to take a moment to make a small request. If you find my videos helpful and would like to help this channel grow, please consider subscribing and, if possible, also clicking the bell icon next to it. That way you won't miss any valuable videos. Thank you very much, and now let's get back to the topic. Among the elements of our daily life that contribute to the deterioration of brain functioning are also sleep problems. I came across a comprehensive scientific publication from 2018 that showed that people suffering from sleep disorders have a 19% higher risk of developing dementia compared to those who sleep well. What's more, people who report sleep problems have a 49% higher risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. Additionally, researchers have confirmed that poor sleep quality is associated with cognitive impairments such as memory, thinking, attention, or perception. According to this data, any errors that predispose to sleep disturbances will be indirectly related to the deterioration of our brain functioning. I will record a separate video about the causes of sleep problems. But here I will briefly say that among them we have, for example, spending too little time in sunny places during the day, using devices emitting blue light for 1 or 2 hours before sleep, taking too frequent naps during the day, getting up and going to bed at different times, or spending too much time in bed. A bad habit that indirectly contributes to a decline in brain function is the lack of routine health checkups. This is because there are a number of ailments that may not necessarily show any symptoms, yet still can damage our brains. For example, data from 2020 showed that mid-age hypertension increases the risk of cognitive disorders by 55%. It should be noted that high blood pressure does not always have any symptoms. When it persists for a long time, it slowly but surely damages our brain. So it is like a silent killer. What's more, experts have noted that an increase in blood pressure is also associated with a higher risk of developing Alzheimer's disease, even by 25%. High blood pressure can lead to brain dysfunction due to several different mechanisms. For example, high blood pressure can cause a lack of blood flow to the brain, preventing it from receiving the necessary nutrients for proper functioning. Therefore, I encourage you to regularly measure your blood pressure, even at home. In scientific literature, we can also find a number of experiments that confirm that environmental pollution contributes to decreased mental performance, dementia, and neurodegenerative diseases. Therefore, spending time outdoors when the smog is so thick that it can be cut with a knife is not a good option. I am aware that we all need to function normally, such as going to work or shopping. However, it is good practice to check the air pollution levels in the region where we live or move around, and, if possible, to stay at home if the result indicates high pollution. When it comes to physical activity, I would like to point out that a lack of movement is one of the most important causes of decreased brain performance. I came across a research from 2020 which proved that people leading a sedentary lifestyle have a 30% higher risk of developing dementia. Moreover, it is worth mentioning that incorporating physical activity into one's schedule has a positive effect on the cognitive performance of people already suffering from cognitive impairments. This just shows that it is never too late to get your body moving, and it is worth doing it at any stage of life. Discussing the errors that may lead to impaired brain function, it is impossible not to mention dietary factors. I consider a lack of vitamin D supplementation particularly detrimental. For example, the authors of the research noticed that low saturation of the body with vitamin D leads to a deterioration of visual memory. In addition, a low level of vitamin D in the blood, below 20 nanograms per milliliter, is associated with a higher risk of dementia of 48% and the development of Alzheimer's disease of 51%. What's more, a deficiency of vitamin D leads to more than 2.5 times higher risk of developing Parkinson's disease. Therefore, I believe that the issue of vitamin D supplementation should be taken seriously, and it is best to supplement it daily throughout the year. A deficiency of vitamin B12 can also lead to cognitive dysfunction due to inadequate consumption of meat, particularly fish, and fermented dairy products. Vitamin B12 plays an important role in the functioning of the nervous system, taking part in the production of neurotransmitters and the formation of myelin sheath that protects the nerves, so its deficiency is felt strongly. This is especially evident in neurological disorders such as memory loss and dementia. What's more, people with an insufficient level of vitamin B12 also experience problems with balance, tingling and numbness in their feet and hands, mood disturbances, and even vision impairment. I talk more about this in another video on my channel. The link to it will appear on the screen at the end of this video. Not consuming enough fish is a nutritional mistake. This is not only because they are a good source of vitamin B12, but also because fish such as wild salmon, herring, sardines or rainbow trout are rich in omega-3 fatty acids, which have a positive effect on brain functioning. Research has shown that not consuming enough fish, as well as not providing enough of the mentioned omega-3, is associated with impaired cognitive functions such as memory, concentration, and thinking. Consuming large amounts of sugar, mainly in the form of sugary drinks, candy, milk chocolate, pastries, ice cream and cereal bars, is also harmful to our brain. For example, frequent consumption of sugary drinks almost triples the risk of developing dementia and Alzheimer's disease. Furthermore, sugar impairs our memory and concentration, likely due to the fact that it lowers the level of the so-called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which supports the regeneration of brain cells. As you can see, there are many threats to our brain's performance that we face every day. I hope that with this material, I helped you to make you aware of which elements of daily life are particularly dangerous, and of course to encourage you to try to avoid them. This way we can enjoy mental agility for longer and protect ourselves from many neurodegenerative diseases. If you have some extra time, I encourage you to watch the previously mentioned video in which I discussed the early signs of vitamin B12 deficiency. To watch it, just click on the thumbnail that appears on the screen. That's all for today's video. Thank you for your attention and see you next time.